How are you beautiful people doing? This is Oki Son with Noises Under the Bed, and I would like to provide you guys with a story written by a special individual named Amber Starbanks. It is called The False Reunion. What would you do if you lose somebody close to your heart and you meet them again in a very horrible way? Well, let's find out. And if you like this video and any other video we have done, please like and subscribe, you guys. And if you guys like the story, please go over to the Creepypasta website and give it a like on there too, please, you guys. And without further ado, let's get into The False Reunion. The story that you are about to hear really happened to me on September 5th, 2012 at 3:40 a.m. About 4 months after my mother unexpectedly succumbed to a bout of pneumonia at the raw age of 45. I will never forget the time nor date of the horrifying experience for which I am about to share. My mother had always had numerous health issues in the years before her death. I was always bringing her to and from various doctor's appointments, treatment centers, and hospitals. I was happy and willing to do this because not only did I love her because she was my mother, I loved her because she was my best friend, someone that I could talk to for hours and tell anything and everything to. The very last time that I took her to the hospital on June 5th of 2012, I was in complete denial. I was in denial despite my mother complaining of how hard it was for her to breathe. I was in denial despite the fact that her normally beautiful, bright and lively green eyes were dull, dark and glazed. And I know now that I was in blinding denial when my mother turned to me as we were just arriving to the emergency room and said to me in a disturbingly labored whisper, "Amber, I am really scared." I never fathomed that that would be the final thing that she would say to me. I now know what someone looks like when they realize that they were about to die. And those final words and her petrified expression will forever haunt me. Honestly, the next couple of months for me following my mother's death were a blur. Almost none existed. The viewing, funeral, and condolences from friends, family, and strangers did not seem real or surreal. As weird as that sounds, I numbed my aching pain as so many others grievers tend to do. I ate opiates and benzos like Skittles, and I wallowed in my own self-pity and depression. Most days my husband would come home to find all the blinds drawn and me locked away in my bathroom, sometimes days at a time, in complete darkness. My family let me grieve in my own way for a little while and then decided that it was time to intervene. I am grateful that they did because I sometimes wonder how long I would have remained in that dark sort of limbo, being neither here nor there, simply wasting away in bitterness and grief. It was the very beginning of September when I finally started to breathe again. I guess it was just starting the beginning stages of the healing process after losing someone so unexpectedly. After losing a piece of myself which I knew and had to come to accept I would never get back, during the time my husband had to travel for business for a couple of days. He was very reluctant to leave me, but I reassured him that I would be fine. Anyways, I secretly wanted a little time to myself. I was excited to settle down that night with a bottle of Chardonnay, a good book, and a scorching hot bath. After these much needed indulgences, I decided that it was time to retire for the evening. It was after all already 2 in the morning, and I remember having a slight yet bothersome headache. I hated going to bed because it always seemed like as soon as I laid down, thoughts of her would flood my brain. Her face, her voice, her laughter, her smile, anything and everything having to do with her always tormented me at night. On this particular night, however, it seemed like a lot worse than usual. I battled with myself as to whether I should pop one of my prescribed sleeping pills. I tossed and turned and tossed. That night, no matter what I did or how hard I prayed for peace, peace just would not come. I still wonder, no, actually prayed that on that night I was actually asleep and that it was all just a horrible, vivid nightmare. I try to justify my experience with these hopes, but I tell you, my friends, what happened that night seemed very, very real. I specifically remember looking at my bedside clock which read 3:44 a.m. and wondering when, if ever, would I actually fall asleep. I turned my attention away from the clock to the television, and in that moment began to smell something like a burnt match, sulfuric, which I thought odd. Before I began debating to myself whether I should get up to go see where the smell was coming from, I began to have a very strange, almost pleasant tingling sensation in my feet, lower legs, and thighs. This sensation then began to travel up to my pelvic area, lower abdomen, and chest. Seconds after questioning the smell and the physical sensation, my bedside alarm clock began to blur. 3:44 blinking at me ferociously in bright red. This of course startled me. As I reached over to turn off the alarm, I was literally pushed into my mattress with such a force that I was unable to move any part of my body. The mattress literally began to sink in around me, as if I was as heavy as a block of cement. The worst part was that I couldn't even scream. I was paralyzed from head to toe. The only thing that I could move were my eyes, yet I could not close them. Suddenly an even stranger feeling came over me. My entire body began to literally vibrate. I can even hear the vibrations in my ears. The sound was almost deafening. Terrified, I look around and then suddenly I saw my mother. She was straddling my body, wearing a white hospital gown with little blue shapes all over it. I am sure you know what I'm talking about. It is the same gown that any hospital provides to admitted patients. The very same type of gown she was wearing when the fluid in her lungs continued to build. The very gown she wore when she was removed from life support, and as silly as it sounds, this is the one thing I've always remembered from her death. Her final moments spent in that dirty fucking hospital gown. She was straddling me, but she was not facing me. She was facing away from me in the opposite direction, facing my television, which was still on, just like it was before. I could not see her face because her dark curly brown hair hung loosely in a tangled mess, covering it up on all sides. On top of my TV, I could see the time on the table box clearly proclaiming it was 3:45 a.m. The span of 1 minute truly felt like an eternity. I knew without a doubt that whatever this was pure evil. It was trying to impersonate my mother. The terror that I felt began to well up in my throat, yet I could not make a sound. The vibrations got stronger as it slowly began to turn its head, its neck crackling violently as it did so to face me. In my head, I began to say the Lord's Prayer and begged for whatever this was to leave me in the name of Jesus Christ. After repeating this several times in my head, there was a strange whooshing / popping noise and the vibration ceased. I sprung up in bed, gasping for air and clenching my throat. Sweat and tears rolled down my face. Needless to say, I didn't sleep at all that night or for the next couple of weeks. I love and miss my mother dearly. I know that if she ever decided to come to me in spirit, it would be a beautiful experience. That is why I know that whatever that thing was that came to visit me that night was not my mother at all. But I do know that it was pure evil. I can say this because I felt it. I felt the evil just like you can feel and touch any intangible object. It was there. I still have nightmares about that experience. And next time I hope and I pray that I never have a false reunion with my mother again. So, what did we learn? Never drink Chardonnay before bedtime, or maybe bubble baths are for chumps. Or just maybe, if you think about it, you shouldn't obsess over something that's long gone. You should get over it. You should try to move on with your life, because when you let it hinder you in the back of your brain, it may come back to haunt you. Yeah, but what do I know? I'm just a guy who reads the stories. Anyway, if you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to hear my voice even more, you can subscribe to my gaming channel. Check out DC Tonight. He also has a gaming channel. Everything will be linked down below. And you guys remember, always remember, if I ever tell you anything that you need to remember, it is this right now. If you're hearing sounds in your room, make sure you check under your bed. Peace out, you guys.